Oh, man, how much further?
I don't know, Hank. These things got to speak to you. We're looking for the Cinema Goat family Christmas tree, you know? Can't rush it.
Well, I know it's special, but it's freezing out here.
Quit your bitching, Hank. The only reason I brought you is because you got tools. There it is. The Cinema Gulp family Christmas tree.
Well, she is a mighty beautiful tree, I must say.
That's right. Hank, get your saw.
My saw. Oops.
Frosty the Perfect, in a trench coat he did go to the schoolyard to expose his dick and balls made out of snow.
Merry Christmas out there. This is John, and today we're going to do a very special episode for Christmas. This is the 30th anniversary of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Hey, man, how's it going? Hey, you didn't have anything else you needed to say, did you? You're cheerful?
Uncle Benny, what are you doing here?
Oh, I just got done hunting some squirrel. You surprised to see me? Huh? You surprised?
Yeah, I wouldn't be more surprised if I woke up with my head sewn to the carpet.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the best Christmas comedy out there. The best. All time.
I agree with you. It's the best Christmas movie. It's my favorite Christmas movie because I never get sick of it.
Never sick
30
of it.
years later, does that mean I've watched it 30 times? No, I've probably watched it 60 times. Twice. At the beginning of December and then on Christmas Day. It's such a classic movie. Little thrown under the bus when it came out by a lot of critics, because critics, especially in the late 80s, didn't really care for comedies. Gave them bad reviews. I think it did well financially. Came out at a good time. This time, Christmas time.
Jingity jing, the Italian Christmas donkey.
What's your thoughts of this film within, how does this film fit into the history of all other Christmas movies and the vacation movies, and what's your thoughts on this as part of the vacation series?
That's always been the interesting question. Like, is it a great vacation movie? Because one is a classic, it's got that like Harold Ramis stamp on it. Two, I think, is underrated, the European one. I think it's so funny. I think it's when the kids are the best. And then the third one, if you make it a vacation movie, there's weak points. The kids are weak. The kids are bad. They're not that. That's one thing people overlook when they praise this movie is that the kids suck. They don't do shit.
I don't think they suck.
Well, they fit in with this movie.
Yes.
But they don't, if you compare them to the comedy that say, like, Anthony Michael Hall did as Rusty, and then I think his name was, I can't remember his name in the second one, but he was great as Rusty, and then this was like a totally different Rusty, and he got younger.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. They didn't make any sense the timeline
No,
there.
I love
think
that.
even between 1 and 2, there's they play with the actress who plays Audrey is a different actress in the second one, right?
Yeah.
Than the first one?
All different across the board.
Yeah, so I agree with you there. The kids are kind of less utilized than they are in the earlier films, not as impactful in the humor, but I still enjoy, obviously, both of those actors. Juliette Lewis is great. She has less to do than Rusty, I think. Rusty's got a few funny lines he's able to deliver, a few good looks. I mean, that's what works for me in this movie, is that every scene has, whether it's through the dialogue or just the reaction shots of people, the way that they interact with each other, it's just, the humor is there every second of this movie. There's not a moment in this movie that I don't find to be hilarious.
Yeah, me too.
Just looking at it as a comedy in general, I think it's a really well written comedy. I think it sets up a lot of its jokes really well. It does. I always love plant and payoff in a movie, and I think this screenplay does a great job of putting in little moments that pay off later in the film to great effect.
Yeah, I know that the director had never done a movie before at the time. He had done TV commercials.
Okay.
So that was interesting.
I'm actually impressed with the direction in the film.
For sure. It's so joyful. Like, every scene, I was 12 when this movie came out, and I just ate it up because, like, I wanted to have that house. I wanted to have that dad.
Yeah.
Like everyone's sitting there going, "Oh, Clark, you're an idiot." It's like, are you crazy? He's the best dad ever.
Yeah.
He wants everything to be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, he goes a little crazy, but that's not because everyone else is being such a dick.
Exactly. No, Clark as a character is amazing. I honestly think he's the template for Homer Simpson and Al Bundy to some degree. That's kind of, I feel like they are kind of pulling from him to craft those characters.
Sort of. Like, He always starts out.
The dad that wants to do the best, but is constantly
Is that
screwing
Al
it up.
Bundy?
You're right,
So
but
sorry. But you're right. He wants to do the best, and he always ends up losing his shit. And I love it. I love that as a character. All three. I mean, the fourth one. I haven't seen the fourth one. I don't remember it, so I don't really count it. But like the first three, Chevy Chase is so great because he's always just smiles and enthusiasm, and he wants to take his family something fun. And when everything starts just going downhill, the way he shifts is so great. And this one is probably the most because
when he loses his shit later in the film, that's like one of the most iconic scenes for me. I love when he's just ranting about his boss and going nuts.
I want to look him straight in the eye. I want to tell him what a cheap, lying, no good, rotten, fart-flushing, low-life, snake-licking, dirt-eating, inbred, overstuffed, ignorant, blood-sucking, dog-kissing, brainless, dickless, hopeless, heartless, fat-ass, bug-eyed, stiff-legged, spotted-lip, worm-headed sack of monkey shit he is.
Hallelujah! Holy shit!
Those few scenes that set up, his troubles at work, his worries about his bonus, work really well. They're still humorous the way they need to be. I love the sarcasm. Chevy Chase is great at delivering sarcasm. I think that's one thing that comes out of the 80s that I miss to some degree. Like the style of humor you get from Bill Murray and Chevy Chase and even Eddie Murphy to some degree. I also think like a couple of those John Cusack movies from the 80s and Val Kilmer movies from the 80s have that sarcasm that I think is missing in some of the humor today.
Yeah,
it just works so well. But Chevy Chase can deliver some great lines, like all the people passing by at work.
Kiss your ass.
Kiss your ass. Kiss your ass.
All right, kiss my ass. Kiss his ass. Kiss your ass.
And I like how even though it's part 3, but it doesn't go in any kind of an order, and it kind of resets every time, with the exception of Beverly D'Angelo and Cousin Eddie. Part 3
is the wife the same? The one?
Yes, it's the
Eddie's
same actress.
I think that's the same actress.
The kids are different, but they kind of allude to that the older kids are somewhere else or whatever.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make sense either because Audrey and Rusty are the same. But that doesn't matter. But I like it that it does. Going back to like where it sits in like the vacation movies, it does do what a good part 3 will do is it goes back to the first one, bringing Cousin Eddie back who was in the first one, but more importantly the woman, he lusts over another woman, and I think in the first one it was Christy Brinkley, like in the Ferrari.
Yeah.
The second one didn't have that. It was more of that one had all these crazy wacky adventures going on. In the third one, it goes back to him fantasizing about a girl, and like he doesn't already have a beautiful wife,
Well, I think like a good sequel, it uses the tropes that you're used to from vacation movies, like that him lusting after the beautiful woman, that's in there.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff with Eddie that you expected from the first film, or that you got from the first film. Him losing his shit, like when he loses his shit at Wally World, he loses his shit at the end of this movie. Like there's those elements that are there, the things you wanted from a vacation movie. But also I feel like, if I remember correctly, the first one's rated R, and maybe even the second one as well.
PG-13.
Okay.
But it was 85. It was the first year of PG-13, so it had boobs in it.
Yeah, so it's definitely got more adult humor in those first two films, whereas this one's more family friendly, which makes sense because it's a Christmas movie, so it plays into that family time viewing. But it works so well, and I think it's funnier than I don't necessarily think that the first two are too crass, but it is kind of crass humor at times. It can be, and this doesn't go there really at all, but still is far funnier, I think.
And it still does have good adult humor. He even says Danny fucking K.
Danny fucking K.
He's lusting over the girl, and she shows like her tan line, and you can
get
like,
some nice side boobs.
Yeah, like it still has those elements, but it's done in, like you said, in a much more family friendly way, and that's what I love about this movie, the way it makes you feel. Like it's a simple story. It's a man wants to have the perfect Christmas, so all the in-laws show up. The in-laws are wacky. They all have these like conflicting personalities. Eddie shows up uninvited because that's what I do. Some characters, like I will say that this movie is almost two movies. Until Eddie shows up, it's very much Clark's movie, setting things up. The whole shtick with the lights and getting all that stuff, because a lot of people forget, like that, all that stuff is like the first 45 minutes before Eddie's even there.
Yeah, he's not even there till about 40 minutes.
And when he shows up, he does kind of take over the movie. He's rarely not in a scene unless it's Clark at work or something. Mm-hmm. And I think that works to its benefit because now those two work off each other. But I do feel like Ellen is sidelined for pretty much the rest of the movie with nothing to do. And that's okay, because every movie, all these vacation movies don't have to center around the husband and wife. it does become more Clark's story with Eddie attached as a side character and Beverly D'Angelo kind of taking a back seat.
Well, and as the other family members arrive, the relatives arrive, they get a bit more screen time.
Yeah.
Clark obviously is still the focus, and Eddie showing up takes over some of that focus. So yeah, Beverly D'Angelo, the kids obviously get a little sideline. You get a few more scenes with some of the other relatives that have shown up, which are all hilarious. I think every relative nails it for what they need to be. I love the way, Beverly D'Angelo's dad is always telling Clark he didn't do enough. Like once he finally gets the lights on, yeah, but the little lights aren't twinkling.
Yeah,
thanks
I'm
for noticing.
freezing my
Art.
bag ass off. Whatever that.
Like every line he delivers to knock Clark back down is just perfect.
Yeah.
And then the way Clark's own dad and mom are supportive in those moments when the lights aren't working. I can see it, son. It's just so
It's
perfect.
a beaut, Clark.
Yeah, when they're all together is when the movie is working the best for me. So it's kind of like two movies at times. There's a focus on Clark at the beginning. I think all that's hilarious. But then when you have the whole family together and you have the dynamic of everyone playing off each other, that's when you get your best scenes.
Oh yeah.
And only 2 scenes in this movie that kind of drop this movie down for me, where I feel like they're not as strong as the rest. The humor, there's still humor in the scenes, but it's not having me laugh out loud the whole time. It is when you're disconnected from the group. You have Clark going up into the attic to hide the presents, watch the sentimental old movies. There's not a lot of dialogue. The scene plays on a little while.
It's Chevy doing "Let Me Have My Slapstick" scene.
There's some slapstick, which this movie's perfect at mixing physical comedy, the sarcastic comedy, and still having like the family-friendly, sentimental kind of John Hughes comedy, and blending all that together really well. And kind of even having spoof humor. Like there's an element of this movie that plays National Lampoons, allows it to kind of have humor that you'd see in maybe a spoof type movie. So it mixes a lot of genres of humor, I think, really well. But
what are some other scenes that you think kind of are the weaker ones?
Well, so there's the
I
going up in the
kind
attic,
of agree with you on the attic.
and
one.
then the one other one that is a little disconnected from everybody as a group is you've got kind of 3 scenes that play in order. You have Clark worried about getting his bonus at work, like one of those scenes where he's worried, and then he comes home and he dreams about having the pool, and that scene's still funny, and you get the
I love that scene.
the hot girl and stuff like that. But then you get the little niece coming and asking about, oh, are you Santa? And they have that little sentimental moment. So that little stretch of the film where it's just kind of focused on Clark, other than the pool scene has everybody in it and is funny,
Yeah.
and the music and everything. But that little segment is where the movie kind of slows down for a second for me, and then you get into the holidays and going out Christmas shopping. And
do you ever feel like that scene with the little girl that comes and Santa Claus and Uncle Clark, you sure you ain't Santa Claus? If you look at like his reaction to seeing Eddie, and then the age of those kids, when would he have ever even met those kids without them being a baby? It seems like they get together for holidays all the time. They're very close, and it's like he's just like, oh, Eddie, I haven't seen you forever, and it's like, but he's got these kids that like love Uncle Clark. And it's like, when did they?
La 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 la.
You know what I appreciate about this movie the most in the decision makings, because I remember when people were bashing it and stuff like that and saying like, oh, it just goes for these dumb jokes and they don't land and it's blah 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 blah. Oh yeah, look at it now.
Yeah.
But the second one did this, and I love the second one, the European one, but that one had to throw in like a caper. And it turns it into like a chase movie where there's people with guns and holdups.
Well, the first movie is an action movie.
Gene Siskel, quote, I love this movie because it could have had a home invasion or some robbery play out with some stupid slapstick thing that was some tacked on ending. And I know you're like, well, but that didn't happen. Yeah, but it could have. And at the time this movie came out, those kind of things were coming out. They always had to have these little capers in these kind of family comedy movies to like end it with some kind of gun. And this one just ends, there's like, Eddie kidnaps Clark's boss, but that all makes sense. He's like the Scrooge character.
Team show up.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying though?
Yeah.
There's not like, oh, the Grizzles had a jewel sent to their house, and like these 2 guys are looking for the jewel.
That would have ruined this.
Yeah,
movie.
but it was happening. Those decisions were being made in the 80s to do dumb shit like that.
Nah, well,
The Wet Bandits did not show up in this.
yeah, I mean that concept sounds like we would have had Home Alone Vacation, which could have been actually kind of fun.
Well, it's funny. They both take place in Chicago, apparently in a very similar neighborhood, because all these people are fucking rich in these movies.
That's true. That would be funny to see the Wet Bandits show up. Another thing I love about this movie is how well it skewers Christmas traditions. Like every time they want to make fun of a tradition we all love, they do it perfectly. The finding of the tree scene, you know, the putting up of the lights, the turkey. I mean, just every single one of those moments that is part of all of our holiday
traditions. The turkey's just completely fucked.
It's just a little dry. It's fine.
Well, I love when when at the beginning when the Christmas tree's on top of the car and clearly no one can see. It's completely covering the entire windshield from one end to the other, and they're just driving in a straight line. I love that tree.
I mean, that's some of that spoof humor.
Yeah,
like you just
it's
have
fucking
to go
great.
with it.
And he's got the Jason mask on, and he's got a fucking
yeah.
chainsaw. And a really great unsung hero of this movie, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and her weird, goofy New York stockbroker boyfriend show up.
See, I think that's another.
I love the neighbors.
The way they utilize them in the film, it's just perfect. Like their little moments, their story progression of how they get on each,
they have
become frustrated with each other by the end of the story and stuff. It just plays out so perfectly.
And I think humor is genius when you can introduce them as assholes, as uptight city assholes, but they're victimized the whole movie. Like they don't actually do anything to the Griswolds.
Well,
you just don't like them.
Any neighbor of Clark Griswold is going to be victimized, I'm sure.
But it's just funny. They literally, outside of a funny exchange, they don't do anything to the Griswold. Even when they find out that the icicle went through and ruined their I don't know, Marco, or whatever. Like they know it happened, and then they turn and they look at the window, and it gives you that music. But then they don't do anything about it. They're not villains; they're just jerks. And I love like all the shit that happens to them. It's horrible. Like he falls down the stairs, and like we're laughing because he's a jerk, but he doesn't really do anything wrong.
Every character works. Like even the late additions of William Hickey and Grace, his wife or whatever.
Yeah,
just so hilarious. The moments that come with them showing up.
Aunt Bethany,
and wrapping up her cat and stuff. And that's those other things where like they lampoon these traditions so well. She wraps up her cat, she wraps up her Jell-O mold. The plant and payoff of the dog drinking the water from the tree, so later it's bone dry and it lights up. Like I love the way they skewer all these holiday traditions better than most other holiday films, I think. They really put in most everything you want from a holiday film and put their own wonderful lampoon spin on it.
And on your point, it makes perfect sense that there'd be a pretty large wild squirrel in this tree
tree. He makes a rash decision, goes out in the yard, cuts a tree down, brings it in the house without thinking that there's wildlife.
And there's a squirrel in it. Yeah.
And then Bethany, who can't hear a dump truck drive through a nitroglycerin plant, is the one who's like, "Hey, you guys hear something?" Like
it's a funny squeaky sound. Like, how did she hear that?
And that scene's a little over the top, but you get everybody's personality is at play in that scene, so that's still really funny. But that is one of the scenes that goes a little bit too far. I
love the squirrel scene,
but I love it,
because the family treats it like it's this huge, like I'm going in with them. Like they treat it like it's this crazy.
That's where like the personalities are all coming out, like going in to save Mom, who's
Mom, don't move. I'm going in with him.
Probably got scared and ran back into the tree.
I don't know. I think this screenplay works really well to set things up to pay off in really great ways. Even like Clark talking about what the project he's working on, this food additive or whatever.
I mean the non-nuclear cereal varnish?
But he uses that on the sled. Like that's just a perfect, lampooning of sledding, but also a plant and payoff of things they've set up earlier in the movie.
Clark is going down this hill on a sled, flying at the speed of light, and that's not even the funniest part of that scene. The funniest part is the dialogue where Eddie's like, I don't know if I should be sliding down with the only thing between the ground and my brain is a piece of government plastic, and he's hitting his head. He's like,
you know that metal plate in my head?
How can I forget?
I had to have it replaced because every time Catherine revved up the microwave, I'd piss my pants and forget who I was for a half hour or so. I don't know if I ought to go sailing down no hill with nothing between the ground and my brain but a piece of government plastic.
I'm still laughing at that when Clark is flying down the hill. And I love that he crashes into a Walmart. That's perfect.
Jingity jing, it's Dominic the donkey. Jingity jing.
Obviously, we talked about we're kids. I remember I was the perfect age for this movie. I could have been even a little younger, but I still at 12 was an imaginative kid, you know, right? And I just remember like when we got this on VHS, it was such a big deal, and I loved it that my dad loved this movie so much because that meant we could all watch it together when we had it. If it wasn't something my dad wanted to watch, we weren't going to watch it. So every year it's just become a bigger thing, and then it's almost become it's not as obnoxious as A Christmas Story where they play that 24 hours straight one after the other, but it seems like they play Christmas Vacation at least 3 or 4 times a week during December, which is fine by me.
Perfect.
Because you can just catch certain moments of it and really love it for just catching moments. You know, but the movie's become such a huge hit. This is 30 years later, and we're still talking about it, and we still love it, and I still watch it, and I still enjoy it, and I still quote it.
It's definitely one of the most quotable.
Oh, yeah.
One of the most quotable movies, but definitely one of the most quotable Christmas movies for sure.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite lines?
Oh my God. Well, shitter was full, obviously, is a big one. I love this. Snots. Roll over, let Uncle Clark scratch your belly. She falls in a well, her eyes go cross. She gets kicked by a mule, they go back to normal. Me and Devin will always quote this. We actually just texted it to each other last night. Got the daughter in the clinic, getting cured off a wild turkey. And the older boy, God bless his soul, is preparing for his career. Carnival.
College? No, Carnival. Last year he was a pixie dust spreader on the Tilt-A-Whirl.
Yeah, I got the daughter in the clinic getting cured off the wild turkey. And the older boy, bless his soul, is preparing for his career.
College?
Carnival.
You gotta be proud.
After the lights and Eddie's shown up and they're in the living room, Eddie and Clark are talking to each other. Eddie's got on some like fake undershirt that only goes to here that you can see underneath his thin sweater. I mean, his outfit is just so amazing and ridiculous. But yeah, I love some of the dialogue in that scene. Like Eddie's not paying attention to Clark when he's like, hey, can I refill your eggnog? Get you something to eat? Drive you out to the middle of nowhere, leave you for dead? Like those little under the breath lines are some of my favorites in the movie.
And when he goes into Mr. Shirley's office, there's all to drop off the present. They're all the exact same shape.
I've always loved that. That's something that whenever I watch it with somebody else, like sure, everyone can spot their own thing, but I have to point that out to people. Like, did you notice how every present
is the same? It's the same L shape.
And it's like, what would be an L-shaped present? Like, that's such an odd shape to give somebody as a box present.
It's a detail that's so great because it's. I guarantee you, a lot of people have never noticed that.
And even in that scene, one of my favorite lines is like. I'm busy. I'm talking to somebody. Get me somebody.
Anybody.
Anybody. And give me somebody while I wait.
and another great detail that's just, is it there for fun? Is it there for someone to catch in a fun way? The Wally World eggnog glasses. It's like, dude, it's not even really ever mentioned. It's not like, hey, Wally World eggnog glasses. It's just they have them.
Because I think some people could be watching and just think, oh, that's like a reindeer.
Yeah, but it's Marty Moose.
Totally Marty Moose.
Yeah, I love those details, man.
Yeah.
Jingle bells around his feet and presents on the sled.
This is why I think it's not just because it's a Christmas movie. Why I think it's an iconic film, and it's gone through the test of time so much better than the other vacation movies, is for some reason, and it's hard to pinpoint why, mostly because it's based in a house, and it's during the holidays, so everyone's in a coat, but it's very timeless. It doesn't have a lot of fashion from '89, doesn't have a lot of music from '89, or gadgets, or cars. It's very secluded in where it is, and the shots are very tight, and yeah, you see Miracle Mile in Chicago, but that still looks the same. You know, maybe some storefronts look different and stuff, but even when they go shopping, it's like, it doesn't feel like, obviously the first vacation movie is very dated because it's all wrapped up in the time period it was in. Second one's not dated that bad because it's in Europe, so it's got Euro
Maybe
stuff.
Maybe it looks dated to people in Europe.
It does. But you know what I'm saying? Like, Christmas Vacation doesn't really need to be in '89, you know?
No, that makes perfect sense.
There's no cell phones, but other than that.
Like, I was kind of noticing how I love how the movie keeps its story contained to mainly what's going on at the house. You have the neighbors, you occasionally have some things where they go shopping, or he's got a scene at work or two. But they, for the most part, keep the story contained, keep bringing they keep refreshing the story by introducing new characters that are showing up to the house, the relatives and things like that.
And even when the jerky neighbors come out in their jogging spacesuits, people wear that shit now for no reason.
Yeah.
So, are you disappointed that we didn't get a tree, even though they are corny and messy and cliche? I love that they're drinking margaritas on Christmas Eve.
I don't think I noticed that. See, details in this movie that pop up even after 30 years.
Oh yeah,
it's amazing.
Man. They're all over the place. I would like to think if we could set fates for every character, minor characters, after Margot and Todd break up, and the SWAT team breaks in, that she ends up with one of the SWAT guys. Because she did sound like she was scared yet sort of sexed up when they come busting through the door.
If you want to come in, you are going to have to break down the goddamn door.
That's another great thing. Like the movie never gets mean-spirited, even when Clark is freaking out, because it keeps itself above that and stays with the spirit of the holidays. Like even the decisions to, like when his buddy at work, I've seen that guy in a million things. I love that actor. When you pick an actor like that, especially at the time, I think he had played a bunch of like slime ball guys. You're like, oh god, this is gonna be like the boss, or this is gonna be like the work angle where his coworker tries to fuck him over for some bonus or something.
That's usually what that guy's doing in the movie.
But he's just his buddy, and they have this nice little warm goodbye before the new year, and my son, I hope you have a happy holiday. Don't worry, don't sweat it. Your bonus. And I was like, wow, what a pleasant. They didn't need to turn him into a jerk.
Both those scenes really play into the John Hughes side of the film, where there's a lot of sentiment.
Oh yeah.
This movie still has, that 80s Hughes heart. So
absolutely. Especially watching those old tapes. Those old tapes were very when he's watching the 16 millimeter, I think it was. Did you notice how they almost did that before Forrest Gump ever did it? They de-aged. But they even had, what's his name, the guy that played Uncle Lewis as a young Uncle Lewis.
Yeah.
Like with a cigar. I don't know how they did that.
Diane Ladd, the mom,
they
with like a wig.
Somehow found older footage of these characters and put it in there like that. I remember being very impressed, going, is that like, it's done really well. I know that's just like a very minor thing, but again, it's another detail. Like, it was the actual people he's
another
watching.
Thing I think that plays into this director, like, really doing a great job with this little comedy, this little National Lampoon comedy. No one expects much, but it's really well put together, really well edited, really well, this everything that they did to pull this movie off from a directorial standpoint.
Pacing. I don't think there's any wasted moments, really.
They're not wasted moments. They're just like, they're the moments that aren't as funny as like, every other scene is like laugh out loud. Like, I just want to revisit this scene. Oh wait, let's move on to the next one because it's so funny. Those are like the two little moments of the film that I'm like, they're my least favorite.
Let me ask you something. There's a couple things that irk me about the whole attic scene. One, when he pulls out, which I think is like a Valentine's Day gift that he forgot. Is it supposed to have...
Mother's Day.
And he had forgotten about it, right? Like, it's like years old or something.
Yeah.
But so then he blows off like ages of dust, and then he proceeds to put other presents in this really dirty looking area. Like, I don't know. It just looked gross and grimy.
Well,
these presents are already wrapped, and he's putting them in there.
I guess that's to play into, kids want to go searching the house for presents when you're young.
I guess.
But I don't think anybody in that house was going to... He could have just put them
in the attic.
No one was going to go up there.
That attic was so full. That looked like the Goonies attic. The other thing that irks me really bad is everybody loves Raymond's mom, Ellen's mom.
Mm-hmm.
She wakes up. Okay, so everyone's asleep. Clark's the first to get up. He's in his PJs. He's quietly like looking around. So he pulls down the attic and he goes up there. Within minutes, everyone's dressed, showered, and ready to go.
And not looking for him.
And the mom just pulls the thing up or puts the thing up like it fell or something without asking if anybody's up there.
Yeah.
And then how do you get locked out? I don't know how you get how you can't get out. Like, it doesn't open up the other way. I don't know. So I'm sorry. Those are just little things.
In California, we don't go in our attics very often.
I apologize for my ladder my attic lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
Never had one or basement.
Your lack of attic etiquette.
Hey, jingity jing. It's Dominic the Donkey.
We are both giving this movie the best Christmas comedy there ever has been.
Oh yeah.
A 10. A perfect 10.
Definitely 10 jingles. If you haven't seen this movie, which I find hard to believe, check it out. Chances are you just turn on your television set this month and it's playing on there somewhere. But I love it. John loves it. Cinema Gulp loves it.
I mean, we've said it many times in this review. It's our favorite Christmas movie. So we just wanted to honor this by giving it its own review. 30th anniversary. Go out and check it out if you haven't seen it, which really surprised us all. Can't do yourself anything better to give yourself the gift of Christmas Vacation this Christmas.
Yes, and if you like this show, please share it with your friends, especially during the holiday season. And like and subscribe and leave some comments. Where can they find us this holiday season, John?
Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Look for us under Cinema Gulp.
Until next time, dick the halls.
Did you say dick the halls?
Until next time, this is Danny fucking K.
And this is John. Have a Merry Christmas.
And we drink your cinema.
I drink it up!
My name is Chris Kringle. I make that pussy jingle. Hoes at the north pull my pockets full of singles. Hey, they always ask why Santa so jolly. Because I got the address to every naughty hottie. Yeah, you seen mommy kissing Santa Claus, but you didn't see your grandma take my pants off. She drank the eggnog from a U-Law before she even took her own pants.